This is a meeting of the Scituate Conservation Commission. We apologize for the delay. We had a little technical difficulty, but we'll get started. This meeting's being held remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to the orders issued by the Governor of Massachusetts dated March 12th, 2020, superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Scituate in accordance with the open meeting law. The meetings will have a question and answer session following each public hearing, and the butters or interested parties will have the ability to raise their hand. We do request that comments be kept to less than 3 minutes. We've got a lot to cover tonight, so we'll try to keep things as concise and quick as possible. If someone's already made a comment or statement and yours is the same, just please say that you echo their sentiments so we don't have to repeat that. Thank you. 49, do we have any additions or changes to the agenda?
I don't think so, Frank.
Frank, you have to do a roll call though.
Okay. There's no additions or changes. I'll just take a roll call to open. So Richard Harding,
Yes, I'm here.
Doug Alberg,
Here.
Penny Scott Pipes,
Yeah.
Jen Foley.
Here.
You told me Andy Gallagher's going to be late, correct?
Correct.
And Brendan Collins.
Here.
Great. Thank you all very much. 49 Collier.
We have to make a motion to accept the agenda first, which I just made.
Second, Richard.
So Richard, Penny made it. Richard seconded it. All in favor? Richard,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes,
Jen,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you. Okay. 49 Collier Road. Who do we have on for that?
Adam Brodsky raised his hand.
Okay.
And Paul Marabito?
Okay. So why don't you want to is Paul, are you going first?
No, Adam Brodsky?
Okay. Can we put Adam on?
Why is it we don't have the audio?
You hear me, Mr. Snow?
I can, Adam. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. It's very nice to see everyone.
See you. So just for the record, you can give us your,
Of course. Thank you. My name is Adam Brodsky. I'm an environmental and land use lawyer with Rowan, Tacho, and Morgan and Hingham. And I represent Alan and Marion Brown, who are the property owners. I'm here this evening with Paul Marabito, as well as I believe Stan Humphreys is on the line. And I know that Mr. Brown is here also. And so I'm the newest member of this team and really have been hired to get this project over the finish line. The notice of intent was actually filed in August of last year. And if I understand correctly, one of the principal concerns of the commission was obviously the setback of the house and its proximity to the coastal wetlands. And so while the Browns had no obligation to do so, they actually went to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And Paul was able to successfully get a finding last week on January 22nd from the Board of Appeals that allows us to move the proposed house 4 feet closer to Collier Road and therefore 4 feet further away from the coastal resources. And Paul deserves a lot of credit for that. I'm not sure I could have gotten that done. And as a result, Paul has submitted a revised plan that was sent over to you today. It's the identical plan that was last presented, except that the house is now located 4 feet closer to Collier Road and therefore 4 feet closer or further away, from the coastal resource areas. And Stan Humphreys, our coastal geologist, also simply submitted an updated summary letter. He provided no new information, but we just wanted to summarize what has happened in the past. There are two principal activities that are being proposed for this project, and you know it better than I do. First is the raising and reconstruction of the existing dwelling and the construction of a new open deck. And as I mentioned, on the revised plan, and I don't know whether you have the ability to pull up that plan, it moves the proposed house further away from the coastal resource areas, and in fact, moves portions of the house actually entirely out of the floodplain. And so there's only perhaps approximately 1/3 of the house remains within the AE zone, but that had the effect of moving a good portion of the house out of the floodplain. And the second part of the project concerned a nourishment of the coastal dune. And that aspect of the project was changed. I understand that there was some input from Rebecca Haney at CZM regarding concern regarding the coastal dune, as well as concerns of the abutting neighbors, because the project originally proposed the use of coir logs to create some create some stability of that coastal resource area. And the coir logs have been removed, and Stan, and you can speak to this, as proposing a combination of dune nourishment and bank run gravel to support raising, to support a lawn that's going to be used to raise the elevation there. That was actually presented in November, but Stan is happy and available to speak to that if you need more information. Just briefly, the critical wetland resource areas are coastal bank, coastal dune, and land subject to coastal storm flowage. This project is odd in that there are multiple coastal banks on the property. There's your sort of typical coastal bank on the seaward portion of the property. And then there's another landform further up in the northwest corner where you see, and actually on the plan that you show, you'll see that there's a little finger of coastal bank that encroaches into the northwest corner of the property. And in fact, the existing house cuts into that coastal bank. But in any event, the proposed dwelling is proposed to be constructed over this small section of coastal bank. Again, this is Stan's area of expertise and not necessarily mine, but this is not a coastal bank which provides sediment to the beach. It simply provides function as for flood control and storm damage prevention. And as you know, for that type of coastal bank, the performance standard really concerns the stability of the bank. You're not going to do anything to impair the stability of the bank. Nothing that's going to be done is going to impair that section of the coastal bank. The house essentially replaces that small finger of coastal bank and provides the same functions with respect to flood protection, storm damage prevention. Nothing that is being proposed here is going to impact the stability of the bank. And so therefore, this project complies in all respects with the performance standards on both the state act as well as your local bylaw, to the extent that there are performance standards. I don't believe that the local bylaw has a performance standard for a coastal bank in this case. I understand from the team that DEP has reviewed the project. Doesn't appear to have any problem with it. And while I know that the Conservation Commission doesn't like to see projects which get closer to coastal wetland resource areas, that's not the relevant wetlands performance standard. And so this project meets the performance standard, and it's our desire, if we can, to get this hearing closed this evening.
So Adam,
Yes.
excuse me, and I don't mean to cut you off, but we have 10 hearings this evening. So with all due respect, we've met on site. We've looked at this. The plans have been changing somewhat with the movement back in. We've also tried to get a coastal geologist to review this, and we're going to do that before we close this hearing. So we want to really keep this. If there's any additional information other than moving the house back, we're going to get a review of this project by a third party before we do that.
So just two things, Frank, and I try to keep it short. If I went over my...
Adam, it's got to be super short and I don't mean to be disrespectful again, but we've got a number of projects here tonight. So
Yes, but this project has been languishing for.
It hasn't been languishing. We've met with the owner. Had a back and forth and a discussion. And with all due respect, we've tried to afford the Browns as much as we can do for anyone else, given the circumstances.
So first.
So I don't want to be lectured on how much time we have on this.
So first of all, the Browns are not interested in a peer review. We don't think that will bring any additional information. The only change is the shifting of the house towards Collier Road 4 feet. You know Stan Humphreys, you know his qualifications. He's prepared to speak to that issue.
I really don't see the point. And again, I appreciate it. We've discussed this. In my opinion, there's enough gray area and controversy on this that we want to have an additional input from a coastal geologist to look at that with relation to what Stan has.
Again, I would have thought that if you wanted peer review, it would have been done in August of last year.
We've been trying to get a peer review person for that. It's been difficult to do. A couple of people that we had approached had some conflict. And to the best of my knowledge, we have Jim O'Connell ready to do this. And that's where the commission's going with this.
Do you have a proposal?
I'm not quite sure, to be honest with you.
Does that mean that we'd have to continue for you to then hire Jim? And then we're now out 2 more meetings?
I would think that's probably appropriate.
Forgive me, I'm getting some instructions from the client as to how the client wants to proceed and whether they want you to close the hearing or not.
Oh, deny it.
The clients are willing to continue, but again, we would hope that you'd have a proposal at the next meeting and then perhaps hire Mr. O'Connell so we can move forward, please.
We'll try to get you a proposal from Mr. O'Connell ASAP and see if he can't review that and get back to us. And what's our dates, Jen?
March 1st is the date. Is the next available.
March
date.
1st, Amy?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'll make a motion, Frank.
yes.
I make a motion, we continue 49 Collier Road to March 1st.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So could I, before you vote on that, is there a meeting prior to March 1st, since it's now the end of January? Are you meeting in February?
February 8th.
That meeting's not available.
And we're booked.
But the meeting is simply to hire Mr. O'Connell so he can start to work.
We can do that without a meeting. I'd like to hire him this week.
If you don't need to hire him during a public meeting, that's fine by us. We just want to get this moving, as we've said.
As do we.
We're sick of it too.
So you're going to hire him outside of the public hearing, and then we're going to hopefully have his report by March 1st?
I hope that he can get a report out to you sooner so that come March 1st, we can have time to look at his proposal and be prepared at March 1st to have a good review of this.
Right. So forgive me, and I don't want to belabor this. So you're going to get us a proposal. We're going to give you the thumbs up. You're going to hire Mr. O'Connell, and he's going to be prepared with his peer review report sometime prior to March 1st. So
That's the goal. Yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
So I seconded that.
Doug's got a second. So all in favor, Richard,
Yes.
Doug,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes,
Jen,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I know
everyone.
this has been a arduous process, but it's a difficult project and that's where we're at. Thank you.
okay.
So,
Frank, I'm gonna move right to Driftway, new Driftway, and that's a continuance. So I make a motion that we continue 10 new Driftway to March 1st.
Second,
That's per request of the client,
Richard, second.
the applicant.
so Richard second that.
Yep.
Where am I? Doug,
Yes.
Penny,
Yes,
Jen,
Yes.
and Brendan.
Yes.
Frank, yes. Okay, thank you. 83 Glades Road.
I think it's Jeff Hassett, so I'm gonna look for Jeff Hassett on this.
Greg Morris is waving.
Amy, can you see Greg Morse?
Good evening. This is Greg.
Hey, Greg. We got you. Go ahead. What's that? Oh, sorry.
You got to read.
On January 25th, 2020 at 5:15 in the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Oak Glades LLC for a raise and reconstruct a single-family dwelling and install on-site sewage disposal system at dwelling at 83 Glades Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information access to the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted at the town website. Sorry, Greg.
Frank, actually, Greg, before you start, we did have a question on green cards on this one or a butter notification. So I just wanted to verify through Jen, which I'm not in the same room, so I'm not sure. But anyways, Frank, maybe Jen can give you the okay that abutters either did or did not check out before we go further.
Do we have green cards for? Greg, did you submit the green cards?
I'd have to check with my office. I know we did notify abutters for this, though. If we did not submit them, I can deliver them tomorrow.
We had a question specifically on abutters at 81 Glades Road
yeah.
that supposedly didn't get noticed. Anyways,
I believe the property owners for 81 Glades Road are aware of the meeting. I believe they're on the meeting tonight as well. If possible, I would like to proceed and, if necessary, continue it in the end so that we can correct any deficiencies prior to the commission closing, and the commission could hopefully close at a future date.
the Don Nagel, who has been hired by 81 Glades, they're respectfully asking that the hearing not be opened and rescheduled after legal required notification to abutters is accomplished. So
We're happy to abide by that. We can continue this or open this at a future date if that's the commission's desire.
It is open.
yeah, Frank, if we could just take a minute or two to take a look at specifically this one. If you want, you guys could go to just take a pause for an administrative item or something while, or we could just continue.
Is Mr. Nagel, can he participate here for a second? Is he on?
Yeah, you can unmute him. Do you want me to unmute him?
He's
Yes,
on.
please.
I just tried to unmute him yet.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, good evening, Chair. This is Attorney Donald Nagel here on behalf of the abutters, Christian and Kristen Putnam, 81 Glades Road. And indeed, I did submit a letter, and first on the agenda was the lack of legal notice for both 83 and 83R. So on that basis, I would respectfully request that the board, that the commission not open either hearing until, proper legal notice is made.
You're representing folks that are on tonight, Mr. Nagel?
I'm sorry, I represent the abutters, Christian and Kristen Putnam that live at 81 Glades Road.
So I'm kind of puzzled by the holdup. I mean, obviously they're aware that there's a hearing. They've retained you to be at the hearing. So I'm not quite sure what the issue is.
The issue is that under the Wetlands Protection Act and under the bylaw, legal notice is required, which is a certified mail and return and receipt requested. And that wasn't done. My clients tell me that they never got that notice.
Well, we're a little bit of a loss here because with this COVID issues, we don't have the green cards in front of us to say whether they did or they didn't. Typically would have that here. I guess I'm just a little perplexed if they are aware of this hearing and they had enough time to contact you and retain you for this. I'm not quite sure what the issue is with that.
Well, if I could just speak to that for a moment. As it turns out, fortunately, I was able to discover that this hearing was occurring, and but it's besides the point. The fact that we're participating in this meeting is besides the point of legal notice. The NOIs are flawed at the outset because adequate legal notice hasn't been provided to my clients. And for all I know, they haven't been provided to any of the other abutters. So I would highly recommend that.
Yeah.
Hearing be.
This is Greg Morse.
John, hold on one second, because we need to keep moving if we're not going to hear this. Go ahead, Greg.
I did notify the Putnams. I did notify all of the abutters for this project. I have a certified mail receipt dated December 15th, 2020. I have emailed a copy to Amy as well as Jen. I just sent that email a moment ago. They were absolutely notified of this meeting. Mr. Nagel, I wish you would have shared this with me earlier. I would have provided you a copy of the green card.
Well, my clients have told me that they didn't sign any green cards.
I am aware that the post office has not been doing human contact a lot of times lately due to the COVID and signing green cards, but it was sent out certified mail, return receipt requested. Once the post office has that, we've fulfilled our obligation under the regulations to send out the notices properly. It was sent out.
And Mr. Chair, Frank, I just got Greg's email, so.
Okay.
Which we did not have previously in the file, but they were sent.
Okay. All right. I think we should just proceed. Greg.
Thank you. For the record, this is Gregory Morse. I'm a registered engineer with Morse Engineering. I'm representing the property owner, PJ Antonic Oak Glades LLC. This is a notice of intent that was submitted for a raise and rebuild of a 2-bedroom single-family home located at 83 Glades Road. 83 Glades Road is a rather small lot. It's approximately 2,267 square feet. It's located in a FEMA zone AE 15. For reference, the topography on the site right now is approximately at elevation 9. Looking at the plan here, if you were to zoom in on the lot, it's the bottom left. There you go. So we're in the FEMA zone AE at elevation 15. We also have the buffer zone to a salt marsh, which is off the top of the page. The 100-foot buffer zone to that salt marsh extends onto the property. That's what's highlighted in green on this plan. The proposal here is to take down the existing single-family home. The single-family home that's there is non-FEMA compliant, and it's a footprint of approximately 567 square feet. It has a failed septic system. Utilities for the home, including water and electric, are serviced off of Glades Road. The proposal here is to construct a new home in its place. The new home is a smaller footprint. It's largely located over the footprint of the existing home. The proposed footprint is 532 square feet in size. It would be elevated on piles above the FEMA floodplain. The first floor elevation is at elevation 16, which is 1 foot higher than the 100-year flood event. We included a pile location plan and a structural plan as part of our notice of intent in the appendix. Utilities, the water and electric would be reconnected to Glades Road. The septic system would be upgraded to a Title V compliant septic system consisting of a new septic tank, distribution box, and leaching chambers. Flow through of floodwaters would be allowed through the foundation as it is elevated up on piles. Over the septic system area of itself, the topography would be raised in elevation. The grade is coming up approximately 2 feet over the soil absorption system. However, the grade underneath portions of the house and along the northern lot line and the front of the property would not be required to be raised in elevation. There is a retaining wall across the majority of the frontage of the site right now. That retaining wall runs essentially perpendicular to the flow of water as it flows from Glades Road to the salt marsh out back. We are proposing to remove that retaining wall. However, we are proposing to construct a new retaining wall along the southern lot line. The location of that wall is required due to Title V compliance and the elevation of the new septic system. This is not an increase in flow. We're maintaining that there's a 2-bedroom house there and we're putting a 2-bedroom house back that is FEMA compliant with a new Title V septic system. DEP had no comments. This project was unanimously approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Penny? Or Richard, rather.
Well, go to Richard, yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess I don't really have a big question. I thought that was very well presented, with the exception of how and if it ties into the next one, the 83R, because they are connected lots. And I'm not sure how one might affect the other. And that's something I'd like to have Greg speak to.
Sure. So 83R Glades Road will be the subject of the next notice of intent on this hearing. My client owns that property as well. It's the property immediately to the west of this. He's proposing a raise and rebuild of a home at that property. Where we've cited the septic system at 83 Glades Road and where we've cited the septic system at 83R Glades Road are complementary to each other. Because we have to raise the grade associated with the soil absorption system, rather than having essentially 2 separate mounds, one on one property and one on the other property, we are bringing the grade up in the same location, and it does traverse the lot line. As my client owns both lots, he is proposing grading across both of those lots so that the septic systems don't stick out as 2 separate septic systems.
Before we go further, can I just say something?
Sure.
And sorry I didn't say this earlier. I'm going to suggest that we open 83R before we go through everybody, because I totally agree with Richard that these are interconnected. The votes would be separate, and they are definitely separate DEP numbers, but since they are the same applicant, the same engineer, and we'll have the same line of questioning largely, I think we could talk about them, kind of like what we did with Townway Extension. So Greg, you could maybe Frank read the opening and then Greg can present that and then we'll go through everybody.
Greg, do you have any problem doing them both at the same time?
Not at all.
Okay. On January 25th, 2025, 15 p.m. in the Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Oak Glades LLC for raise and reconnect of a single-family dwelling and install on-site sewage disposal system at dwelling 83 Rear Glades Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meetings available in the agenda posted at town website. Okay. Thanks, Amy.
In regards to 83R Glades Road, again, the property owner, Oak Glades LLC. This property, located just to the west of number 83, is the larger home in the back. This property, too, again, is a rather small property. It's 7,690 square feet. It's not
Whatever's on display, Greg, isn't the right.
No, not this plan.
That's foam.
Whoops.
There we go. There we go.
That's 83. So
Ah,
you want to
yeah.
look at 83R. It's got in the back of it. It's got some vegetation.
So this shows actually both properties.
Yeah, but the other one's got a planting plan. So maybe Jen. There you go.
That's
Perfect. Okay.
So this property in the back, 83R, 7,690 square feet. It's in the same resource areas. It's in a FEMA zone AE at elevation 15. The topography at the lot, again, for reference, is at approximately elevation 8. There's a salt marsh. The salt marsh is highlighted in blue. The edge of the salt marsh was delineated by Brad Holmes, who's a professional wetland scientist. Off of the salt marsh in red is the 50-foot buffer zone, and in green, the 100-foot buffer zone. So with 83R, the entire site is located inside of the 100-foot buffer zone. The house, there was an existing house on the property. There was also a separate detached large shed. There was also a separate detached garage building. The structures on the property covered 1,706 square feet, none of which were flood compliant structures. The structures existed at a setback of 19.4 feet from the salt marsh. And if you looked at aerial photographs, you would see that the former property owner utilized the property right up to the edge of the salt marsh. There were boats stored on the property, old vehicles stored on the property. It was not well kept. The proposal here is to take down the 3 existing buildings, the home, the shed, and the garage, and to construct one new home in its essentially in the same location. The new home is a 4-bedroom home. What's out there is a 4-bedroom home. The new home is a smaller footprint than the structures that existed out there. The new home would be elevated on pilings. We included, again, with our notice of intent in the appendix, piling layout and structural plan showing that the house would be elevated at elevation 16, which is 1 foot above the FEMA floodplain. This would have a new septic system. The new septic system would be located outside of the 50-foot buffer zone, which pushes it right up against the rear lot line of number 83. That's why we've put those 2 septic systems essentially in the same area so that they can complement each other with respect to grading on these lots. Along the left side lot line, which is the southern lot line here, we are again proposing a new retaining wall. That retaining wall is about 2 feet to 2.5 feet in height to make up the difference in grade from that septic system so that there's no grading across the lot line to the abutter's property. The Zoning Board of Appeals issued unanimous approval on this property, and DEP had no comments to it. It maintains the setback to the wetlands that pre-existed at 19.4 feet. I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Okay. Start out with Richard again.
Well, first of all, Greg answered my question to combine them, so that was good. Thank you, Amy. Why don't you ask our colleagues, let them have a chance, because I already had one chance. I'll come
Sure.
back though.
Okay. Doug?
So it looks like, and I believe you said that both houses actually are reducing the size of the footprint from what was existing.
Correct. The,
And-
go ahead.
Okay, and they're going to be raised on piles above the base flood elevation, 1 foot above the base flood elevation. So my question really only, and is probably going to be a concern to abutters, and that is going to be the fill that's going in there and the retaining wall itself. So you're going to put in some fill over the top of the systems because you need that for cover, correct?
Correct.
And is that going to be sand, or are you going to try to loam that?
So the septic systems in both cases are partially located under the house between pilings, and then they're partially located in the side yard of the houses. The portions that are located under the side yard would be under loam and seed grass areas. The portions that are under the house, under the pilings, that would be sand over the systems in those locations, or gravel over them.
So then the only question I have then, Greg, is there a risk of increased surface water flow off the sites? I'm just looking at how close these houses are.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I feel like you might have been in for number 85. They're very close to each other, and I'm wondering if there's going to be my concern is only that there won't be, or my desire is that there won't be any increased water flow off these sites onto any abutting properties. The retaining wall on the southerly side will certainly prevent that in that direction. And then the other question, I get this is more for the commission, because of the perpendicular nature of that retaining wall, do we have to concern ourselves with that being a structure in a land subject to flooding at all? And that is a question for my own benefit more than it is for Greg, unless he knows the answer to that. So that's it. I think, and I think we even have a letter from an abutter regarding that surface water flow.
Okay.
And making sure that that's not going to be a problem. That's all.
Greg, you want to speak to that now?
Sure. There's a lot to consider in your comments, Doug. The first one is with respect to drainage off the site. I don't expect that there's going to be any more surface water runoff as a result of the construction on these sites. They both have a reduction in impervious land coverage. There's less roof area in both cases. There's gravel or shell driveways going in. They're not paved driveways. So there's no increase in surface water runoff. But over here, we are looking at the floodplain. And the floodplain areas that we look at, typically we would be concerned with providing compensatory flood storage if this was an inland flood area. However, this is what's considered land subject to coastal storm flowage, which the DEP offers an exemption that you don't have to provide compensatory flood storage because the assumption is made that the ocean has infinite storage capacity. So by importing a certain volume of fill to construct the septic system at one of these sites, we're not going to displace the ocean waters in any measurable amount that would negatively influence an abutter. Now, when it comes to flows, I have seen pictures of flows running between the houses at these locations from Glades Road to out back. When you consider where the house is going, there's already a house there, and the house that's already there starts at the existing ground surface right now. We're taking those houses, we're elevating them up on piles so that you'll get flow through underneath those houses. So right now where the house sits, you're not getting any flow through. Essentially, we're constructing a septic system, and you won't get the flow through where the septic system is, but you'll now get flow through of where those houses are due to their piling construction. At some point, the neighbor, specifically the southern neighbor, will likely have to upgrade their septic system, and they'll be in the same elevations. They'll be talking about raising their grade probably to match our grade at some point in time. Until then, the resultant is we need that retaining wall. Where that retaining wall is, again, there's an existing house 6 inches off of the lot line for almost the entire length of the retaining wall on the back lot. So you have the facade of that existing house acting as a stormwater barrier in the pre-development condition. The pre-development condition on the front lot is you have a retaining wall all the way across the frontage, again, running perpendicular to how the flow is. And so in the pre-development condition, you're taking all the flow that would run onto this property and diverting it to the neighbor already. With the proposed construction, we're now removing that wall, so you actually will get flow onto the front lot at 83. Did I address your comments?
You did. Thank you, Greg. You did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Doug, you good?
I am.
Okay, Penny?
Yeah, I think it's a huge improvement. I'm very, very familiar with these 2 houses. And to get 2 new houses up off the ground where the flow, like Greg was just talking about, because every time there's a high tide, the marsh floods, and then when we have the storms, it comes across from the ocean, and it's always flowing through there. It's nothing new, and it's going to continue. But now you have nothing on the ground blocking the flowage, and until these houses are removed, the flowage is being blocked greatly. So I like it. I like the project very much. End of story.
Okay. Jen?
Yeah, I have a couple things that haven't necessarily come up yet. One of which is the distance from the back house to the marsh line. I'm not also seeing like existing conditions necessarily in terms of like wetlands flags and the way I'm used to seeing it. So maybe that's on like a different map or something. But one, I guess I see like SM2, but does that like reflect everything? And also I would like the house to be further from the marsh than it currently is.
So we did submit 2 plans. We submitted the standard plan that you would typically see. That's not this one here, but there is one for 83R, which specifically calls out the individual salt marsh flags and has the setback. Yeah. What's on the screen right now is a mitigation plan. We do realize that typically the commission tries to adhere to a 50-foot no disturbance zone. However, this site has the existing house well within inside that 50-foot zone. There really is no feasible way to construct a new house outside of the 50-foot zone. So we provided that mitigation plan to provide plantings. And what we proposed were over 100 plantings right along the edge of the salt marsh. The salt marsh in this site here essentially were utilized right up to the edge of the marsh grass. Again, there were old vehicles, old boats, all sorts of other debris out there that my client has been cleaning up for the past several months. which if you look at the Google Earth images of the site are very evident at this site. So this here will provide an actual buffer where one, it doesn't exist today. That back lot line, we held the setback at 19.4 from the wetlands. That's what exists with the existing house. In the proposed house being slightly smaller, we felt that was an improvement.
The proposed house being smaller, this one's bigger.
It's smaller.
Oh, you're
because
thinking all of
what's
the
out there today are 3 buildings on
Okay.
this lot. There's a house, there's a shed, and there's a garage. So it's 1,706 square feet of buildings today. We're going to 1,456. So it's approximately 250 square feet less building.
The one thing that you mentioned that definitely did bug me is that the applicant has been doing work without a permit and storing construction material on the site. I understand from some of the abutters without a permit. So that's not something I love. Why also does the planting stop 6 or 8 feet from the lot line?
So
There's always a good reason. I'm just curious what it is.
essentially the salt marsh comes onto the lot from the back right corner, and it goes off the lot at the back left corner there.
Oh, okay.
It goes off the lot. So
Got it.
we're attaching to the salt marsh wherever we can. That's why.
Got it. Okay. And then the proposed the area that's very grayish that says proposed 10-foot right away parking area. Is that, I think, given the amount of development happening on the site, is there interest in making that more grassland?
Hard impervious shell.
Just
So
a
right
lot
now-
shell.
Yeah, right now that's all just bare gravel area.
Mhm.
We were proposing to put a shell surface on it. Parking is tight with many of these houses back there. These houses do have a shared access way to Glades Road between number 85 and 87. And just for maneuverability, we were proposing basically to recover all of that gravel with a shell. Be immediately behind the house, we'd be looking at doing grass between the salt marsh mitigation and the house. But over that gravel area, I think just a shell. We need the maneuverability.
Yeah, I get that. Maybe it would be great if there was a plan that showed kind of even what you had highlighted between the houses as this might be grass area, if that could be highlighted. The other thing that was, I feel like I'm overusing the word concerning tonight, and I promise, Frank, this will be my last point, at least for now, is I'm concerned that the marketing pictures for these sites don't necessarily reflect what is actually feasible or conditions. Now that's their decision when they are selling, but we're not permitting garage doors on these sites or enclosing the bottom pilings areas.
No, so the pilings, around the pilings, you are allowed to have a skirt around pilings, but there are very specific requirements on openings and the ability of water to flow through it. Absolutely. So yes, you are correct. It's not an enclosed space below this.
Yeah, so that's just something for it might make sense to
Update their marketing images.
Yeah,
Understood.
I had to tell a friend that wasn't gonna exactly be the case. So, and I guess Frank, I'll pass the buck now.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Is Andy in yet?
No.
Okay. Brendan?
Well, Jen took all my points actually, so I actually don't have anything additional at the moment.
Well, stay tuned because there'll probably be a few more questions on this
Yes.
one. Amy?
Okay, so being mindful that we're trying to be productive here. I'm going to keep my comments also brief, but anyways, I mean, I think by and large, it's a really great project, right? They're really redeveloping, what would be considered blighted properties. I think I agree with what Greg represented is from the current owner, and having been out there, that it wasn't well kept previously. So this is going to be an improvement. They're getting them up. They're improving the septic system for failed systems. Land subject to coastal storm flowage within the buffer to BVW. There, the replication plan or restoration plan in the back for the salt marsh. I mean, I think that is a good start. Perhaps a beefier plan might be better. Yeah, we could definitely special condition, and we do, in fact, for projects like this, no lattice or enclosed structures for the piles. Yeah, so let's just keep this going.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience that wants to speak to this? And I'm going to remind everyone that it's a 3-minute comment period. They could raise their hand if anyone wants to speak to this.
Carol Tremblay.
Okay, calling on Carol Tremblay.
Carol?
Yeah, hi, that's her husband, Bob Tremblay, 71 Glades Road.
Thank you.
I just have a question regarding this. First off, certainly acknowledge that this is an improvement for what Ms. Welke appropriately described as a blighted area. Although really, I think all of us would prefer an area this close to a sensitive marsh have originally never been built on, but we're dealing with what we're dealing with. I guess when we as the butters, look at the whole project, the two properties, 85 and 87 Glades that have already been permitted, we're really looking at an area, while blighted, it's been described as existing structures, existing septic systems, but we know in reality that those have been largely abandoned for many years. We've lived at that property for the past 11 years, and 83 and 85 Glades have never been occupied. 87 had one occupant on and off over the years. And there were two occupants in 83R with one bathroom. And but this is all in all, taken in totality, and I know you're only considering 83 and 83R, but it's a lot of development for a sensitive area. And I can't help but believe that we're going to increase nitrate flow into the marsh and put ourselves at risk for algae blooms and more invasive species, in addition to the questions that have been already addressed about the flooding from the marsh side. And again, I understand what Mr. Morse is saying about DEP rather, and the exception for estuaries and marsh areas that are contiguous with the ocean. But this is a small area that floods very regularly. Raising the grade there may also have an effect on flooding in the parking lot and the budding neighbors. So I just wanted to ask if you could address those questions.
Okay, thank you, Bob.
Greg? So I think one of the questions is the nitrate, which I think should be a concern to the commission. Just maybe you want to elaborate a little bit on the septic system.
Sure. So the septic systems here are designed as replacement systems for the same number of bedrooms that exist at the site today. That back house is a 4-bedroom house. It has a 4-bedroom septic system there today. The fact that there's only 2 people that live in the house or did live in the house, that doesn't restrict the size of that septic system. That's what we're proposing is exactly what's there. It's a 4-bedroom in the back and a 2-bedroom in the front building. The new septic systems are, the reason why we have to bring the fill in is to elevate those systems above the groundwater table so that you will get, treatment of the effluent before it hits the groundwater table, before it hits the salt marsh. You don't get that right now. Both of the septic systems for 83 and 83 are in the water table. There's no treatment. There's no bacteria source that, is effectively treating that stormwater. So, the septic water. So Title V requires that, the systems be elevated. That's why we're doing that. That's to better protect the salt marsh specifically. And again, it's not an increase in flow. It's the same number of bedrooms.
Greg, what was the perk rate here?
Bear with me 1 second. It was less than 2 minutes per inch. It's a coarse sand.
And what's the rate that would have to happen for a system to fail? Like if it almost like too great a perk rate. I remember one time trying to perk in a cobble beach and there was just no way to perk it.
Yeah, so that's typically with a septic system, the bottom of the septic system has to be 4 feet above the groundwater table.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you have a sandy soil, they make you design the bottom of the system to be 5 feet above the water table. That's what we've done here because of the sandy soil.
So you've added more sand.
Correct.
To filter that.
You've provided more soil, more sand between the bottom of the septic and the groundwater, which allows for more bacteria to grow in those sand pore spaces. So you get better treatment of the water before it hits the water table.
Okay. Thank you. And then I'm just trying to think of Mr. Tremblay's other point. I think the nitrate one is well made. Do we have anybody else that would like to speak to this? For either 83 or 83R?
Seeing none, Frank.
All right. I just got a few more questions. So we did have a couple
raising their hands.
Pardon me?
There's 3 people raising their hands.
All right. Who do we have on?
I see them.
Delia Weichert and Don Nagel. They're physically raising their hands as opposed to.
Okay. Can you click on that? Mr. Nagel or the Weicherts, can you see on
I
your?
have Delia unmuted. Delia, keep your comments to less than 3 minutes, please.
Okay, thank you. This is Delia Weichert. I live at 84 Glades Road, and I did submit the letter today that you referred to earlier in the meeting. It's obvious that I'm concerned about many environmental issues with the size of this development, and specifically the water flowage, which I think you've done a good job of addressing, but I still have 2 concerns. One is the retaining wall. I'm not exactly sure what height that retaining wall will be at the street. And because I've seen so much water come across from the right of way as well as through my own property, but when it comes across from the right of way, it's actually flowing south to north, depending on the direction of wind and current in the storm. And I'm concerned that that retaining wall, if there's any height to it at the street, is going to direct water down through the Putnam's property and increase the flooding and flowage that they're dealing with. So I am concerned about the height of that wall and the fact that it's a solid structure in a flood zone and how it will affect the flowage. I'm also having a little bit of a hard time picturing the bump up for the septic system. Is that something that starts at grade at the street and then goes up over the septic system so that we have a mounding there? Or is it higher at street level, and there was mention of a retaining wall going along the property at street level. Currently, there's only a retaining wall in front of what used to be the porch of 83 Glades Road. One of the photos I sent in, you may think that's a retaining wall there, but that's actually a wooden board that the owner put up to try to keep the water from flowing across the property from Glades Road through 83 Glades Road, not a permanent retaining wall. And I just want to stress that I have no idea if conservation commissions have anything to do with wind and height, but I've already seen damage from the condos that are built at the old Mine at Light Inn property, and the height of that building has damaged the beach so that I'm getting less protection from the rocks on different ends of my beach during storms. And I'm just wondering, with the height and size of these buildings, if wind is ever a concern for conservation, because I do feel that winds, especially hot summer winds reflecting off the height of these buildings, could end up drying out the marsh even more. And we need to protect that marsh to keep our flooding at least to a less than what it currently is or what it's capable of becoming in the future. So I just would like to, ask you if you could just address those three issues: the retaining wall, the bump up on the septic system where it would be at the street, and whether you ever do give any consideration to the height of buildings and the wind that will be affecting the environment.
Okay, thank you, Delia. We got it.
Okay.
Greg, you can chime in on the walls, please.
Sure. So the wall elevations are labeled on the plan. The elevations, the top of the wall is at elevation 10.5. Out at the street, the front corner of the property is at elevation 9.8. What that means is you're going to end up with a retaining wall that's approximately 8 inches high out at the street. I did visit the site earlier this week. The concrete wall in front of number 83 that's out there right now is approximately 2 feet high across the front of it. And then it does drop down, and it's not a piece of wood that extends across toward the Putnam property, but it is a concrete wall that extends across. That is approximately 6 inches in high already.
Great.
So the proposed wall is, about 2 inches higher out at the street than what exists there today. Does that answer the wall question?
Yes.
Okay. The septic
Excuse me?
system question. The grading for the septic system essentially starts at the street. There's no change in the grade at the street. So you'd come in at the street elevation. We're proposing to come up gradually over the septic system so that approximately 15 feet onto the lot, that's where you would start the slope to come up over the septic system. It would come up approximately a foot at that 15-foot mark.
Greg, a quick response to the wind.
Wind is more of an architectural feature. These properties are in a high wind and hail zone. They'll be required to comply with mass building code requirements for their siding, for their windows, for their roof shingles. That would be submitted with a building permit.
Okay. Greg, can I ask a question on this plan? This retaining wall that runs parallel with the Glades Road, is that existing?
Yes, it is.
Amy, is it within the purview of the commission to ask that wall be removed as part of the orders?
It's not called out on our plan as being removed, but that is our intent, is to remove that wall. That would be removed.
We could put that in the orders.
Okay.
And we can move to Don Nagel.
Yeah, we'll get him.
Okay.
We're gonna make sure we cover this. So that retaining wall could be removed in the front, which would change at least some of the deflection of water to Mrs. Weichert's concern, so that water should move more through the property. Who have we got up for a hand up?
I'm gonna unmute Nagel, so hold on.
Okay. Mr. Nagel?
Trying to get him unmuted. Here he is. John,
Okay,
you have
thanks.
3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes. Okay,
Timing.
I represent the abutter, as I said earlier, and from an abutter's point of view, obviously there's a lot of concerns. This is a big project on 2 parcels directly abutting, my client. Frankly, I find the plan hard to read. Usually I'm looking at a existing conditions plan and then a proposed conditions plan. These seem to be conflated, and it's kind of hard to tease out exactly what's going on, but I'll just highlight some of my comments that I made in my letter that I submitted today. Principally, okay, the resource areas, I see that the salt marsh line, the 100-foot buffer is identified, but I don't see anywhere where it was flagged by a professional wetland scientist. Maybe it is, but I can't see it. The other thing is, I do see that it's the 50-foot buffer is identified, and I heard Greg saying that, even though the impacts, the alterations to salt marsh aren't identified, there's a proposed mitigation. So this comment goes to all the resource areas, but the salt marsh, the 50-foot no touch zone, and also a missing resource area is the river, coastal river, in the marsh and back. So that's the Rivers Act is applicable here, and it's not addressed at all. And for that matter, and for all the applicable resource areas, the salt marsh, the coastal land subject to flooding, and of course the riverfront area, which isn't identified at all. There's no, in the narrative or on the plans, it doesn't address what alterations are proposed, and whether those alterations meet the performance standards for those resource areas, and what kind of mitigation would be appropriate for any such alterations. So, the basic, meat and bones of this proposal, I don't see it. It's not there. And I do appreciate the 250-foot strip in the salt marsh, but it's kind of just floating out there, and it's not related to anything. It's not related to what impacts to the salt marsh will occur and how they might be mitigated and how that meets the performance standards under the Act. The 50-foot no touch. I mean, almost all of the building in ADR is fully within that 50-foot no touch zone. And, relief has to be requested and granted for that. And I don't see that 250-foot strip is really being adequate for that purpose. Couple more points. One,
It's got to be pretty brief.
Yep, it will be. I understand the work is being done within the AE zone, at least for 83R, maybe 83 too. I know that the bylaw talks about the lowest horizontal member as an additional foot above the base flood elevation. I don't see that called out in these plans. And the drainage, I mean, obviously you got to put in mound systems here for Title V, and the drainage and how that affects my client is really concerning. The standards in the bylaw is that in an AZ zone, any activity shall not have any adverse effect by increasing the elevation or the velocity of floodwaters, or by increasing flows due to the change in drainage or flowage characteristics. Well, that's exactly what this proposal does. And it seems to be specifically prohibited under the Scituate wetlands bylaw. And then finally, the retaining wall, and I know this was addressed, Greg, in the zoning board meeting. The 2.5 foot retaining wall that runs parallel to my client's property will in effect block access that my client has had and predecessors in interest have had for over 20 years to Glades Road. And I know that you did make an accommodation in the plan submitted to the ZBA, but I see no such accommodation here. And those comments, which I just summarized quickly, are laid out in more detail in a letter I submitted.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Don.
Greg?
I would have appreciated receiving a copy of that letter so I could prepare comments in response.
We just got it like an hour ago, so.
Great. So I'm aware the retaining wall does go all the way up to the front along Glades Road. My client and I have both reached out to both Attorney Nagel as well as the abutter and said that we would revise it out at Glades Road. It is outside the 100-foot buffer, but we would cut off the portion closest to Glades Road so that it would provide a slight access to his client. His client comes down their stairs right now at number 83 and walks over the property at 83 Glades Road. The abutter has not lived there for 20 years at this point. The abutter acquired their property less than 20 years ago, but we've agreed to make the change anyways to alleviate that concern. I will read through Attorney Nagel's letter and provide written response to it at a continued hearing, I would expect.
Okay. Thank you, Greg. Who else do we have on for hands raised? Is there Kristen Putnam?
Yeah, I'll try to get.
Thank you. Chairman Snow and the committee, Christian Putnam, 81 Glades Road. I will be very brief. Just want to set the record straight. I bought this property in the spring of 2001. I have lived here for 20 years. So while we may be at 19 years and months, by the time this is built, it'll be 20 years. And it was an existing condition. So I have had access. And then the one other thing I would mention is at the rear of the property, there is flooding from the salt marsh commonly. And I think that wall is going to make the flooding worse for us. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. All right. I just want to make a few comments and then I think that we'll continue this. So concerns about making sure we have all the correct resource areas. And Brad Holmes evaluated this site, Greg?
He did. We had Brad Holmes evaluate this site. I will ask him to specifically look into the setbacks to the river out back. If a riverfront does extend onto the site, which it may, I don't know the answer to that. The site, I can tell you, would comply with the requirements. It's actually a reduction in impervious area for both cases. And as you've heard before, septic systems, that component of the site, septics are exempt from the riverfront standards. I will verify it with Brad.
Okay, I'd like to get something back from him on that, if you can show us where that is. How about with regard to drainage? So I don't see any infiltrators or anything. I know that there's a lot of buildings with impervious areas now, but is that something that should be considered on this site?
We didn't feel it was necessary. Again, neither site by itself nor all of the sites combined here trigger the stormwater bylaw. They're both a reduction in impervious area. They're both a reduction in roof area. And the grading, how we have it proposed, we're not taking water and diverting it onto the neighbor's site. The water would stay on this site. In fact, there's more pervious ground surface in the post-development condition because we're removing the two structures that sit on the ground level, and we're opening that area up for infiltration under the buildings as well.
Okay, thank you. With regards to the comment on a 50-foot no touch or even the 100-foot buffer, I think everybody's well aware that there's plenty of pre-existing structures here. This is an altered resource. There's a number of buildings, and so within the 50-foot buffer, if this were a virgin site, undisturbed, then obviously we wouldn't be talking about a building here. But in this case, there's already a number of structures, disturbances, and I think, as a few people have pointed out, it's in pretty rough condition. So certainly the commission is well within its purview to consider these changes, and given the properties that are there now, I think it's important for the commission to weigh out what some people would consider improvements versus the existing properties on that site. You now have buildings that are on the ground. I'm assuming failed septic systems, and now you're going to have structures that are on piles. Water can truly flow through, and you're going to have compliant septic systems. So I think that's part of the thing that the commission needs to weigh when they decide on this. I think double checking on some resource areas, having the chance to fully review Mr. Nagel's letter, which just came in at the last minute. That's a little bit disappointing, considering that this project has been going on for some time now. It went through the planning board process. So it's been out there, but nonetheless, we certainly should address those abutter concerns and double check on the resource areas, I think, is the primary piece of this. I'd also like to make sure that proper information is given on the retaining walls. What am I missing? Greg, on this right of way that goes in here, so that's how the cars are going to pass through to get to that parking area. It's a little bit hard to see. There's a bound.
There's a 10-foot wide right of way that goes between number 85 and 87 Glades Road. That's how the site is accessed today. It's a gravel access way that would be kept in place.
So the vehicles going in are going to drive over that septic tank and into that parking area?
Correct. We've designed the septic tank, obviously, for vehicular access. There is a septic system for number 85 Glades Road already under that right of way as well.
So Greg, do you think you can get us this info by February 12th?
Yes.
Because that would give us a continuance to the next available, which is March 1st.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you need a little more time.
I can work with those dates.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to continue this meeting to then March 1st? Is that what you're saying, Amy?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I make a motion that we continue 83 and 83R Glades Road to March 1st.
That's a motion. To a second.
Second, Doug.
Doug. All in favor, Richard?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're on to 162 Bossy Lane.
Yeah.
That's lot 162.
Lot 162. Thank you, Richard.
Mhm.
On January 25th, 5:50 in the Town Hall. Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Emily and Patrick Fair for construction of a single-family dwelling and associated septic system on location lot 162 Bossy Lane, Situate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the agenda posted at the town website.
This one's Greg Morse.
Greg?
Thank you. Again, for the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering. I'm representing Patrick and Emily Farr. Their property is located at lot 162 Bossy Lane. This is a notice of intent associated with a new single-family home to be constructed at the property. The lot itself is 37,441 square feet, 30,546 square feet of which is upland land area. The property lines are the black lines shown in bold around the plan here. It's a very rectangular shaped lot. Central on the lot, highlighted in blue, is a bordering vegetated wetland. The wetland was delineated by Brad Holmes, a professional wetland scientist. Off of that, we have in red a 50-foot buffer zone, and in green, the 100-foot buffer zone. The proposal again is the site itself, if you went out there today, it is completely wooded. It is a virgin lot. The proposal is a new single-family home. The new home is located on the bottom right corner of the lot. It's a 3-bedroom house. The house itself is 60 feet from the wetlands at its closest point. The system would be serviced by a septic system, a septic tank, and a pump chamber located in the front yard between the house and Bossy Lane. Those are located at a minimum distance of 70 feet from the wetlands. And it would pump the septic effluent to a new leaching field, which would be constructed at the rear of the lot. The septic leaching system is located 58 feet from the wetlands. Around the entire limit of work and the limit of clearing, we've placed erosion control barriers. We've placed a construction stabilized entrance at the entrance of the driveway, and we've located soil stockpile areas during the construction process. The lot itself does not trigger the stormwater bylaw. However, we've taken all of the roof leaders and directed them into 2 dry well systems, one in the rear yard and one in the front yard for roof recharge. DEP had no comments on this site. We submitted this originally back in December. The commission had hired Art Allen of Ecotech to perform a review of the site. Art Allen, Agent Walkie, and I visited the site earlier in January. There were a couple of adjustments to some of the wetland flags, which we picked up on a revised plan and submitted that. And I believe you received a letter yesterday or today from Mr. Allen saying that he agreed with those new revised locations. Otherwise, all of the work is outside the 50-foot buffer zone with this project. I'll turn it over to you.
Frank, I have Art on the call too, if we can go to him before
Sure.
commissioners. Okay, let me try to get him. Hi, Art.
Can you hear me?
We can.
All right, Art
Good evening.
Allen from Ecotech. How you doing?
Good evening, Art. Can you just fill us in briefly on this site, your findings?
Right, so I evaluated the site on January 8th of this year. As noted by Greg, he was there along with Amy. And I made findings of some additional wetlands outside the delineated resource areas out towards Bossy Lane. There's a mowed lawn area that had hydric soils outside the wetland flags. I placed 2 new flags there. B8R and B7R connecting to the original flag B6. I also made one adjustment of flag A1 with A1R, again in an area, this area with water breaking out and hydric soils present. Those revised flags and wetland boundaries are properly depicted on the plan revised through January 12th, 2021. I also noted that the wetland is fed by what appears to be it's a subsurface culvert, appears to be carrying groundwater and stormwater runoff. We traced that culvert back through 2 surface inlets on adjacent upgradient properties up to 2 catch basins that had flow up on Branch, is that Branch Street?
Yeah.
Branch Street, yep. So, and we actually talked to one of the abutting neighbors who has had concerns about the continuity of that culvert and work associated with it at lot 162. I noted in my comments that although the drainage culvert was identified on the plan, there should be provisions made to protect it and repair it as necessary, which Greg has included notes on the plan to that effect. And also I noted we observed basically an underground bunker, or it's identified as a root cellar on the plan. It was associated with a former barn that was partially on the property. The barn foundation is still there, so is this root cellar. And I noted that the proposed sewer force main was proposed directly adjacent to this root cellar, and also mentioned that that should be addressed in the plan. Greg actually included a note on that to be crushed and abandoned as part of the construction, so that should address any concerns of the force main running adjacent to that underground structure. So at this point, that's the extent of my my review and comments on the plan, which have been addressed again in the revised plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Art. Maybe you could just hang on for a minute if we have any questions from anybody.
Certainly.
Thank you. Right. Flip it to Rich.
I don't have any questions right now.
Okay. Doug?
No questions. It's a tight squeeze.
Sure
But,
is.
it's like it's in there.
Mhm.
So, no real questions.
Okay. Penny?
Okay, I have 2 questions. Art, when I was out there, it looks like it's very, very wet. I mean, there's ice out there in the wetlands, so it's really wet out there. And I didn't actually see the drain pipe, but I actually thought there was a brook running along, parallel to Bossy Lane. But anyways, my concern here is it is a tight site for the house. And we run into trouble. We condition a piece of property for a house to be built on a very tight thing. And then it gets built, and then somebody buys it, and then they go in the wetlands, and then they go in the buffer zone, and so forth and so on. I think with this particular property, we have to be very, very careful in the orders that markers go up, as much fencing markers to stay out of the buffer zone, because I don't want this to be the 2 houses at the end of Hollitt Street. They both have these gorgeous, huge backyards that they weren't supposed to have. And that's my only concern. It's a very tight piece of property to put a house on. It's beautiful out there, but we have to make sure that whoever ends up here, it is clearly marked the 50-foot buffer, stay out of it. And don't go out there and clear a thing. Don't go pick a leak, nothing. Leave it alone. That's my only concern. You would
Thank you.
stipulate
Thanks.
something.
Thanks, Penny.
Thank you.
Jen?
Yeah, I echo Penny's sentiments, but my caution is we can't control who lives there. And so we
I
need
know
to,
we can't, but we have to try and do what we can.
oh, exactly. So that's why whatever we can do in terms of maybe it's actual fencing as opposed to conservation markers.
Yeah.
So maybe our conservation markers aren't providing enough deterrence. So maybe that's an option.
Okay.
That's it.
Brendan?
Even there we go. Sorry. Yeah, I have the same concerns as Penny and Jen. It's really tight, and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, there is no yard. Although whoever's going to move there isn't probably not going to realize that off the bat. So that's all.
Okay. Amy?
Yeah, so thanks, Art, for the expertise. And I mean, so I don't have a lot to comment about resource areas, but as far as this being a new build on previously undeveloped land and encroaching right up to your in your buffer zone, in your buffer strip, I mean, there's a stated, minimal 50-foot width. But that's not, that's a minimal. It could be increased up to and exceeding 200 feet for a new build, depending on your site specifics and what you're trying to protect. So, I mean, Frank, often on sites like this, it's I agree, like, how are they gonna get this done with working with the deck posts are gonna go right up to the limit of work, and the infiltrator is like immediately adjacent to the limit of work. And then just comment on the area that Art flagged as wetland is filled wetland. It's probably been there for quite a time, but a lot of times when we do let people get in on these tight sites that have been previously not developed, we would get some kind of mitigation. So perhaps if you're going to go down that road, the area that's been filled, maybe a restoration of that might be nice. So those just some thought.
Okay. Do we have anybody? Thank you, Amy. Do we have anybody in the audience?
We do. We have a Mr. McGinnis I'm going to pick on. I'm not pick on, but you know what I mean. Select.
Sounds good.
Hello.
Hello. Good
Hi.
evening.
I don't mind being picked on. This is Mark McGinnis. I'm at 15 Manor Road, and I'm one of the abutters. I'm basically the abutter to the leaching field.
Yeah.
So I'd like to just reinforce the business about what's known as Lawson's underground drain.
Yeah.
The Lawson property is very mysterious. And the fact of the matter is we're very concerned with heavy equipment either driving over that or digging the trench for the forced main pipe. If that thing was to get blocked up or damaged, it would turn both my neighbor next to me, myself, and the lady across the street on Manor Road, possibly into a quagmire. And we certainly don't want that. These little private dirt roads are troublesome at best. And we had a house built at the end of Manor Road not too long ago. And the developer promised the sun and the moon. And of course, the minute it was done, see you later. He was going to grade the road with all the damage they had done. Well, never did it. So I'm a little skeptical about that kind of thing. And everybody says it's a tight squeeze. I'm concerned about the leaching field, obviously, because that affects me the most. And I don't know, I don't really read these schematics that well. It's not my field. And I don't know how high the retaining wall is going to be on the north or the lower end of that leaching field. But does that become kind of like a dam with concrete walls going into the ground that might back up groundwater and runoff? And also about the area and how beautiful it is back there. I've been here 37 years. And I'm afraid that maybe, I don't want to say for sure, I think some clearing has been done already. And if nothing else, some of the trees that were dropped probably have fallen into the 50-foot do not touch zone.
Yeah.
So there it is. And I don't want to be an obstructionist. I'm way too old for that.
Thank you, Mr. McGinnis.
Thank you. Greg, do you want to speak to the retaining wall height and what impact that would have? And before we do that, which way is the water flowing on that Lawson drain pipe? Is it flowing towards the wetlands?
Yes.
Flowing into this wetland, yes.
Okay. And what does it
Then-
connect to?
So up gradient, I think you heard from Art, there's a surface inlet up gradient of it. It's not mapped out anywhere. It's not within an easement. It's not a town pipe. It's one of those old Lawson drains. This was part of the Lawson estate.
Yeah.
You'll see again, there's an old root cellar. There's a silo on the property, or was on the property. There's a foundation that used to be, I think, a cow, barn at one point, but what it physically connects to further up gradient is really unknown. At this location here where it discharges, it appears to be a fieldstone culvert. Whether it converts into a concrete pipe, I don't know at this point. We have put on the plan, the notes that the contractors to use caution, and it certainly is not our intent to block the flow of that water.
Okay. I mean, most of those pipes in that Lawson era can be clay, so they're pretty fragile.
Yeah. So yeah, again, if it was encountered and there was anything, wrong with it, or if it was broken, it would be on us to fix it. Absolutely.
Can we put that in the conditions, Amy, that pipe be protected?
Yeah, I mean,
And I think maybe we even need more.
BMPs.
Well, I mean, it's going to alter some sort of flow. If it doesn't, then it obviously contributes to that wetland. Without that could alter the function of that wetland. So I think we're within our jurisdiction to make sure that if you think about that, once that's removed from there, if that wetland would continue to function the way it does now. Do we have anybody else to speak to this?
Not
So-
that I see.
Okay, so I think the points made, this, your point, I mean, this is almost all this project's within the 100-foot buffer, which is considerable. And I'm not seeing a stitch of mitigation proposed to do that. So that's a concern. The protecting the buffer zone long-term, maybe it needs to be markers and a fence. I think there should be a fence installed during construction to keep equipment there. Is that tree line truly arced like that?
That's the proposed tree line. The entire site is wooded right now, with the exception of a small piece in the bottom front left corner of the site. Between Bossy Lane and the existing tree line in the front left corner is kind of a grass field. You heard that it's maintained. I have photos dating back into the 90s showing that it was lawn area. There was a boat stored there. We could certainly propose plantings in that area. The remainder of the site, though, is fully wooded.
But at the end of the day, though, like between the house and the leaching field, was that all going to be lawn? It's not really called out.
Correct. Correct. That's correct. So everywhere in between the proposed tree lines going around the site, that's lawn surface. Yes.
But truly, that doesn't necessarily have to do that. The trees don't have to be cut. If I see like where the building envelope is, there's enough room to get machinery in and construct that without removing all those trees in that corner. Sort of between the septic system and the root cellar.
Correct. Yeah, you could bring the tree line up a little bit further and square that off by the leaching field.
And then additional buffers in that area where it's called a field.
Mm-hmm. Plantings in that location. Yeah, I mean the plantings and mitigation in that area. I didn't propose mitigation because I didn't. I wasn't altering any area inside the 50. I didn't anticipate providing mitigation for the 100-foot buffer. But that field area, we certainly can propose plantings in there. We'd be able to put up a split rail fence along the 50-foot buffer zone in place of markers, if you would prefer that as well.
Greg, what's the purpose of showing a leaching field that's not to be constructed?
So there's, when it comes to Title V, you have to document that you can fit a primary septic system, which is the one that you will build, and then a reserve septic system, which is one that you could build if the primary one ever failed.
Okay.
So the Board of Health requires it.
Yep.
Kind of
Art,
reminds me of,
is Art on there still?
yeah, he is still on. Art. Yeah, Art, can you weigh in on mitigation locations?
So the mitigation and also just the areas that are to be cleared, is there anything that you noticed of either significance or that could be improved or?
Clearly down in the corner where the wetland flags were adjusted, that's an existing lawn area. I think Amy referred to it as filled wetland. I don't know so much filled as historically cleared and maintained as lawn, but that's certainly an ideal area for mitigation plantings if the commission desired, both within the expanded wetland area and within the 50-foot buffer that's currently cleared lawn. And that would, that would actually, in my opinion, go a long way towards, mitigating for the outer buffer zone impacts, because otherwise that whole area, could continue to be mowed and maintained, because it's historically been mowed and maintained. So proposing, some native woody plantings down in that area, I think would be a great mitigation measure. Also, as you noted, squaring off in that corner up by the septic system and minimizing the buffer disturbance up there would be another, beneficial modification to the plan. So yeah, those are the two things that jump out at me.
Okay. And that field, that mowed area, part of it's an upland, but am I reading this right? Part of it's a wetland by soils?
It is now that I found hydric soils within the lower part of the area, correct.
So when considering plantings and stuff for that, those plantings might be a little bit different to mimic a wetland area.
Right. Any PWS, Brad, or anybody with his qualifications could certainly tailor plantings to those two different environments, the inner buffer versus the wetland. Yes.
Okay. I think I've got all the ones that I need.
Okay.
Amy? Thank you, Art.
So, Greg, what do you think your time frame is on getting us some stuff?
I'd like to discuss if we could do a condition or two and try to close this. Try to save coming back to a second meeting. The applicant here, the FARs, they are going to be the property owners. They are building this house for themselves. They're local business owners here in town with small children. They have a builder lined up, which is very hard to get these days. And we'd like to move forward as expeditiously as possible. What I'm hearing is if we add potentially a split rail fence along the 50-foot buffer zone to prevent future encroachment and provide mitigation plantings, I think we could provide you a mitigation planting scheme of that entire area that's marked out front. It's approximately 1,650 square feet. That could be submitted as a condition of approval for you to approve at a future time. The house location, the septic location, those really can't change. I heard concern about pushing back the limit of work or having people encroach lawn areas into the 50-foot buffer. How I've showed the limit of clearing at the back near the septic system there, that small triangle, if I look at the area of that, it's approximately 300 square feet or so that I could adjust that tree line. I don't know that that's going to make a substantial impact if I moved that tree line out, as opposed to the more robust plantings out front. This property, that area back there is going to be the lawn area. That's the flat area over the septic system, over the leaching field. If that area there, that triangle was filled in with trees, I can't say that it would happen, but over time that might be looked at as an area that could be cut to expand a lawn. We've proposed staking that out as the limit of work because that seems like a realistic lawn surface. If we could do a condition to provide plantings in that 1,600 square foot area and restore that hydric soil area in the front in that field, it would be greatly appreciated. Otherwise, I need a little more guidance on what else you would want me to address.
So I guess what I'm thinking is, and given that this is a real, and any other members feel free to chime in, but given that it is such a sensitive area and you're essentially shoehorning a lot into a little bit, restoring that area along Bossy Lane is, in my mind, should be done. But I'm also thinking that some of this other area could remain treed to some point, that it doesn't need to be fully cleared. Obviously, you have to clear the area for the house. You have to clear the area for the septic system, but you've got an area there that mature trees could remain. People can work around that, maybe some underbrush cleared out so that they could still have some benefit of their yard. But to take out all those trees in this area seems pretty aggressive.
Yeah, it's pretty presumptive on the buffer strip definition for a new build. My recommendation would be to pick a date in March to continue this to.
If we think, we're trying to avoid continuing some of these and trying to close, but I'm just not quite sure. I don't want to leave it loose on keeping things all.
Well, maybe by then they'll know where they stand with the Board of Health too, because right now they don't have that approval, so.
The Board of Health is waiting for Conservation Commission. They were asking for a set of the finished floor plans to verify the number of bedrooms. The finished floor plans haven't been drawn yet. Other than that, it does not require any sort of variance, and I expect their approval easily.
Greg, is that, to Frank's point though, I see a notation on the plan that says an old foundation. There's a big rectangular looking
Yes, that's a
structure out there. So are there trees inside of that?
Not,
or is
Not really. There's a couple of saplings maybe growing up inside of that foundation, but nothing significant.
So, that area back there then isn't really significantly wooded.
It certainly has been disturbed at some point before around that foundation. Between that foundation and the tree line up at the 50-foot buffer in that triangle that we're talking about, it's a 14-foot distance away from that foundation to that tree line. So, that tree line could be pulled closer to that foundation so that we're just removing essentially where the foundation is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I that's all the farther I see that you can gain out of that you're
Well, if you see the setback line, Doug, that says building envelope,
yeah.
so it's what is it? 15 on the side and 30 in the rear.
Yes.
So essentially, if that sort of triangle between that building line and the proposed tree line were kept with trees on it, I mean, if some thinning or something was done below that to give them some.
So he could re-angle that force main to go up and over and leave that area up to the foundation treed.
Right.
Because are you going to remove the foundation?
The intent was to remove it and make that lawn area. That's the backyard for this house.
Yeah.
So, cutting the tree line to follow that building envelope essentially leaves a backyard that's 10 feet wide, which is doable, and we can run the force main up there. It didn't seem desirable, if you would. So
I'm suggesting that larger trees can be kept in that area, and that then there can be, it can be cleared to some degree underneath it.
Okay.
And then vegetate, replant the area out towards Bossy Lane.
Frank, this one reminds me of like 183 Summer Street, for instance. It's
Yeah.
like, I mean, just think of like to Penny's point, it's when you put these houses in these locations that it's so tight against our, I mean, who wants to buy a house with no backyard or no, you know what I mean? It's like there's nowhere to go here. I think it's tight. That's all. And
I understand. So if we have a fence area, vegetate the area that was cleared along Bossy Lane, including restoring that wetland, and then trying to keep some more trees in this remaining area in the backyard, I don't see what more can be offered for mitigation.
we could absolutely do that and work around the trees in that triangle.
I think the fence is good. Should we let Mr. McGinnis chime in just for a minute? Hopefully.
For a minute. And then protecting that pipe. We really want to make sure that pipe is protected, and at the end of the day, it's working.
Absolutely.
Okay. Does Mr. McGinnis want to speak again?
Trying to get him on. Hold on.
Mature trees.
Wait a minute, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'd like to say in point of fact, there are mature trees growing out of that foundation.
Okay.
Not saplings.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think that, an area could be made. I mean, obviously you have to get in to build that septic system. So you're going to have 12 feet or something that's cleared coming around the septic system. And then that's where you're going to put your forced main, and then only thinning of the trees in that remaining triangle.
Yep.
Can we do that and put that into conditions, Amy?
I really want to see this in a plan before you guys close, because there's just so much going on that it's really hard to keep track of.
All right, what's the earliest we can continue this with new information?
Well, I guess that comes back to Greg. Greg, when can you get us the info that we're looking for?
Tomorrow.
Okay, if that's the case, then technically our deadline for the 8th was today, but I think we could probably get them on for the 8th, if that's the
Okay.
case.
2/8.
All right,
All right, can I continue it, Frank?
to the 8th, yeah.
I make a motion, we continue lot 162 Bossy Lane to February 8th.
Second,
Second, Richard.
all in favor? Richard said yes. Doug?
Yes.
Penny?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
11 Foam Road. On January 25th, 5:15, the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 4 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Francis. I'm going to kill this one. Shig. Construction of an addition or single-family dwelling location 11 Foam Road, Scituate. Butters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the meeting is available on the agenda posted at the website. Thank you. Who's presenting?
Ross
We've
Engineering.
got Paul Marabito.
Okay, Paul.
Frank?
Good evening.
Hi, Frank, and members of the commission. For the record, I'm Paul Maravito from Ross Engineering Company, representing the applicant and owner of the property, 11 Foam Road, Frank Shig. What the Shigs own the existing house at 11 Foam Road. What they're proposing is shown on our site plan is an addition, which is 10 feet by 30 feet at the rear portion of the house. There'll be there's also a proposed open deck, which comes off the addition. That'll be about 2 feet above the existing ground. There is a very small increase over the 25% threshold for the stormwater bylaw. And based on that, we're proposing one row of chambers for the recharge of the roof area. That is part of the addition behind the house. The proposed deck is not included in that because that's considered to be pervious. There are no grade changes to the lot. The lot's relatively flat. It slopes from the rear of the lot out toward Foam Road. There's less than a foot change in elevation. We show a silt sock around the area of the proposed work, including the infiltrators. The existing bulkhead behind the house is going to be relocated to the side of the house. There's about a 5.5 to 6 foot crawl space, which is the lower level in the home that'll remain. The only thing in there is the existing furnace. The hot water heater is up on the first floor. So I think with that, I'll end and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Paul. Richard?
I might not have heard it, Paul, but is the deck off the ground or is it on the ground? And if so, if it's raised at all, what's it on top of?
It's off the ground. It's the top of the deck is about 1.5 to 2 feet above the ground. It'll be sitting either on probably some small sonotubes. It's a fairly small deck.
Okay, that's good for now.
Penny?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Jen?
I'm good.
Brendan?
By the way, Andy's here, but I'm all set, I think.
Okay. Andy?
I am okay on this one.
Okay. Amy?
I think this one's pretty straightforward also.
Yeah.
So I don't have much to say. I mean, one thing that does come up as far as calls into the office on projects that have significant earthwork would be like a tracking pad. Because we get complaints from residents and stuff like that, but otherwise I think it's approvable.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the audience for this one? What flood area is this in, Paul?
That's in flood zone AE 15.
So, and this house has a first floor elevation of 15.3.
Yes,
So an AE zone is the first floor, right? It's not the structural number.
yes.
Okay. All right. I'll take a motion to close.
I make a motion to close.
Second.
Penny, Richard's a second. All in
Hold on.
favor?
Did you ask for a butters?
I thought I did.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Do we have anybody? No,
No, you're right. Okay, sorry, I'm just too much going on.
Okay, so we had Richard with a motion, Penny with a second, Doug,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Great, thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, thank you. Have a good evening.
You too. 202 Central Ave. On January 25th, the Town House Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 4 of the Mass General Laws and Section 300 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Michael Biviano to raise and reconstruct a new single-family dwelling on pile foundation, a new sewer disposal system at 202 Central Ave, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information of the virtual meeting is available on the agenda posted at the town website. Okay. Who's on for
Okay,
this?
so this is Bob Crawford, but I don't see him on the line unless he's a call-in. But I do see Mike Viviano on the line, so I think I'm gonna unmute him. Can you
Okay,
figure this out.
all right.
You're on.
I was going to propose this plan tonight.
Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, thank you. We filed a notice of intent to demo and rebuild and install a new septic system at 202 Central Ave, Hummerock. The lot's approximately 12,000 square feet. It's in flood zone V18. We propose to build the new house on wood piles to elevation 21. The existing house is currently sitting at elevation 17.17. It currently has a failing Title V system. We plan on putting in a new Title V system. That's part of this plan. There's no fill needed for the septic system, and there's no grading changes on the lot.
Before you go any further, is it really looking hard to see where the existing house is? That's what's shaded?
Yes, correct.
Okay. All right. Richard?
Sorry about that. Mike, can you give the difference between the existing house that's being taken down and the size of the new house that's being proposed?
The size of the first floor is very comparable to the.
We can't hear you.
Can't hear you, Mike.
Sorry, can't hear me?
Yeah, got it now.
Okay, sorry, get a point directly at the computer. So the existing house is 1.5 stories. The new house we have proposed is two stories with a walk-up attic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's approximately the same, footprint moving over. The deck is a little bit larger as well on this deck than the previous one because this one wraps around the property.
Okay, so I just want to understand, and I know the area pretty well. The house is moving slightly to the north?
Correct. It's getting centered on the lot a little bit better.
Yep.
Because it was really jammed right up against that right lot line before.
Okay. And then the deck's going to be on the south side of the house?
The deck will wrap around the entire house.
Okay. All right. No, that's all for now, Frank.
Okay. Doug?
Um, I don't think I have any questions. These are all wood piles, right?
That is correct.
All driven wood piles. And they'll be up above.
Correct. The current house has a full basement with a block foundation that will all be removed and replaced.
And so it'll be up on piles, which is
That part's good.
okay. Yeah,
Okay.
no, I don't think I have any other questions.
Okay. Penny? What's that? I'll jump to Jen.
Yeah, I think I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay. Andy?
I'm looking at the back. So the proposed new deck is closer to the water than the existing one. Is that right?
Looks like it to me.
It does get a little bit further back.
Okay. And then those are large boulders, and the pilings are going
Right there.
on the boulders.
They'll be,
Boulders.
we'll move the boulders out of the way to drive the piles, and the boulders will just go back into place. It's quite a large wall in front, in the back of this house. with those boulders.
But those boulders basically are there.
They're
They
there
are
now.
interesting.
They'll be moved. Okay. All right. I think I get that part. Thank you.
Brendan?
I'm okay.
Amy?
Yeah, so I'm not sure Mike reviewed the resource areas, but they're probably pretty evident. So it's a barrier beach, coastal dune, A zone, B zone. And there may also be some riverfront. DEP, the comments from DEP is that it's in the North River Scenic Act Protective Corridor. So just wondering, Mike, if you have filed with them and have a decision from them. And otherwise, I mean, it's clearly, I think the project is an improvement for the area. To have them elevate on wood piles is a bonus, and an upgraded septic system, clearly a bonus. So yeah, I think it's good. Mike, if you could speak to that other question.
Mike, do you want to speak to the riverfront area?
So it does, on the front of the lot, border Central Ave.
You got to face your mic, I think.
All right. So it does border Central Ave on the front of that property. The owner owns the lot across the street, which borders the river there. So I can check with Bob Crawford and see if there's any other needed permit for across there, but that lot does not touch the river. It's a separate
But
one.
still,
Yeah,
it
but with the,
triggers the
footage.
Scenic Act. So there's the North River Commission
Okay.
is a separate filing in addition to the Conservation Commission. So it's another set of approvals that you need to get.
Okay, that's fine. I can talk with Bob about filing for that.
Amy, quick question for you. The North River Commission or the South River Commission?
It's the South.
It's North and South River together, aren't they?
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that location maybe. I got
That's the South River. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, wait.
just reading the comment from DEP. So,
Yep.
Which they don't always make that comment on these. So I thought it was interesting.
Okay, will do.
So I have a couple of, is there anybody in the audience for this? Any hands? Okay, Mike, just in terms of actual increase, if I were to kind of shift that shaded section over, it looks to me like this house is maybe, I don't know, 20%, 25% larger in square foot area than what exists.
I would agree about 20% larger.
Okay, and then you have but you have also a full deck wrapping around. I question the piles in that riprap area. In other words, in order to get those in there, someone's going to have to pull apart some of that that wall. And I didn't go down there, so I'm not familiar with how informal that is, or I'm only looking at the plan. But it looks like on either side of the property, there's fairly straight lines, and then it sort of gets irregular here. What's going to be required to get that wall apart, and then are you planning to put that back together?
Yeah, so our plan is to just bring in the excavator. Those are those 4-ton, large riprap stones down there. The excavator would take them, move them to the side. The piles would be driven and they would be put back into place around those.
Good. I don't like that.
So I think it's important. I mean, typically these walls are there because they're grandfathered. So I think we really want to have some good documentation on what's there for the wall so that it doesn't really change.
We would be using the same exact stones. We don't propose to bring any new stones in or to lose any of them.
All right.
These are pretty big stones. It's a loosely built wall. It's not a concreted together wall. These are just placed there.
Yep, I get it. And do you think they're going to be any detriment to that wall or that area by removing?
No, that wall is actually pretty deep. You can see on the plan, he does depict it pretty well of how deep that is. Each one of those stones is probably anywhere from 6 to 10 feet across and anywhere from 4 to 6 feet deep. So they're pretty big. We only need to remove some of that wall in the back to put these in. It's not that difficult to lift those up with the excavator there. We won't even be touching anything on the beach at all. We will be on the other side of the wall only.
Okay. Well, I think part of our orders will be that we'll get some good documentation on that wall, maybe some photographs or something like that.
Sure. Happy to supply those.
And then the riverfront and the size. Those are mine. Anybody else?
Nope.
Is this something that we want to try to close, Amy, or do you want to get some feedback on that riverfront?
No.
I think you can close it without that scenic act finding, but just of note that they need it before they can go to construction.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Take a motion.
Make a motion to close.
Second.
Second, Doug.
Great. So all in favor, Richard,
Yes.
Doug's on, Penny,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan.
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Mike. So now we're 10 Newton Street. On January 25th, 5:15 p.m. the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40, Massachusetts General Laws, and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Perry D. Natale for reconstruction of a new single-family home on pilings and replace the sewage disposal system dwelling at 10 Newton Street, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are advised to attend. Information to access the virtual meetings available on the posted website. Okay.
Okay, Stenbeck and Taylor's up for this one. Looking for McGovern, Terry McGovern, or any engineer from that firm.
Who we got from Stenbeck and Taylor?
Or the owner is Perry, or the applicant's Perry Di Natale.
Nobody's here.
Anybody for 10 Newton?
You wave your hand or something, or I think we will need to continue this.
This is in Hummerock as well, yes?
Yeah, it is. It's a little tiny yellow house that's practically on the ground.
Oh, it is tiny.
Yeah.
And is this a raise and rebuild?
I didn't get that impression.
If nobody's here, we should probably.
I guess it is. I
Yeah.
guess it is a raise and rebuild. Yeah.
It is, and with a septic, I mean, I think it probably should now go to, this is where I wish I was in the same room as Jen.
Well, do you want to just go to 16?
To 2.8. Yeah, we could just pass over it for now and come back before we close, and we'll figure this out.
All right, so we've opened it and we'll just wait.
Back to it.
If we don't hear from the applicant by the end of the meeting, then we're going to continue that.
Right, and so, and I'll look at the file for a cell phone. So I would go on to 16 homes.
Okay.
It's also Humrock.
My goodness.
Jen's actually going to shoot them a quick email while I'm reading this. So on January 25th at 5:15, the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Lyons Family Trust for a septic system upgrade at a single-family dwelling, 16 Holmes Street, Scituate. Abutters and interested parties are invited to attend. Information to access the virtual meeting will be available on the website. Okay, so who do we have for 16 homes?
This is Greg Morse.
It's Greg. He's muted.
Oh, Jen's off for a second. Give us one. Unless somebody else can do it from somewhere.
No, I do the muting and unmuting. He's unmuted. Greg, you're on.
Excellent. For the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering, representing the Lyons Family Trust. This is a septic system repair at 16 Holmes Street in Hummerock. The septic system at this house failed a Title V inspection. And what we're proposing to do is to install a new Title V compliant septic system. The property itself is approximately 3,200 square feet. And it's located in a FEMA zone. It's located in a zone AE at elevation 14. The proposal here is to construct the new septic system in the front yard. It consists of a septic tank, a distribution box, and leaching chambers. They're under a gravel driveway that's at the site. There's no change in the ground surface proposed. The topography would remain exactly the same. So it would just be a temporary construction impact during the excavation for the septic. Board of Health approved this at their meeting tonight. DEP had no comments.
Okay. Richard?
I don't have any questions except that I know it's needed.
Okay. Doug?
No questions.
Penny?
Nope. All set.
Jen?
All good.
Andy?
I'm all set.
Brendan?
I'm all set too.
Amy?
Yeah, so, Hummerock, same resource areas as the last one. And it's a cesspool with a septic upgrade, so we like this project a lot. Good news, Board of Health tonight approved it, so yeah, let's get this done. Close it.
Okay. Anybody here in the audience? Okay.
Make a motion to close.
Close.
Richard's, wait a minute.
I knew that. Follow her up.
If you could tag her, Richie, you could get a Coke.
She can do it. It's fine.
All right. Penny's made a motion. Richard second.
Yeah.
Doug?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
I did wanted to say, I just spoke with Stembeck and Taylor as well. Terry McGovern, he was unaware of tonight's meeting. He apologizes for that, but he won't be able to participate tonight. If you could continue him to the next available hearing date, he said.
Thanks for doing that, Greg.
Thank you.
Okay, so before we open the next one, let's continue. Was it 10 Newton?
Yes.
Yeah, to win.
can we move them to the next meeting? What do we got?
No, but we're too full. I think got to go to March 1st.
Okay, I make a motion, we continue 10 Newton to March 1st.
Second.
All in favor? Doug,
Yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Okay. 232 Central. On January 25th, 2020 at 5:50 in the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 4 of the Mass General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Situate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of, I got Peter Armstrong on one and Peter Armstrong for septic repair project at single-family home and dwelling at 232 Central Ave, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Information is available for the virtual meeting on the agenda posted at the town website. Okay. Is this Grady?
Yeah, we have Darren on the line here.
Darren.
How you doing tonight? My name is Darren Grady. I'm representing Peter Armstrong for the septic repair at 232 Central Avenue. The septic repair is in a riverfront area of the South River. It's a coastal dune. Hold on.
It is.
Land subject to flooding, a FEMA flood zone, velocity zone, elevation 18, and a barrier beach. The Board of Health approved this tonight. We are proposing a limit of work and silt fence around the construction site shown in red. The system is located as far away from the resource area as possible and in between an existing water main that's on this lot and the existing foundation. There's very little room to put this in, but we were able to fit something that met most of the rules and regulations, except for the ones that Board of Health had approved for local upgrades. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Richard?
Well, I can't ask anything of an engineering point, except that the location is about the only place they could put it. But I'll leave any of the engineering for the septic to other people's questioning.
Douglas?
I don't have any questions at all.
Okay. Penelope?
Oh, looks good.
Jennifer?
I'm upset that my name didn't get fancier.
I did the best I could.
I'm good.
And Andrew?
I am good.
And Brendan?
Careful what you wish for, Jen.
I'm okay. I'm good here.
Good, good. Amy?
Yeah, I'm good too. Sounds good.
Okay.
All right.
Anybody in the audience for this one?
No, we're gonna close it.
Jen Smith, you want to say anything on this one, just to break it up? No. Okay. I'll take a motion to close.
Make a motion to close 232 Central Ave.
I have a second.
Second. Richard.
Okay. So all in favor? Richard's already on. Doug?
Yes.
Jen?
Yep.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank, yes. Good. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. So we move that one. So we're
2, 3, 4.
Frank, let's take a 5-minute intermission.
Why?
If that will help everybody.
okay. Can we all live with that for 5 minutes?
Yep.
Yeah, let's reconvene at 8 p.m. Gives you 8 minutes.
8 minutes. Go see my dog.
Okay.
Okay.
She's unhappy.
Penny, you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Thank you very much for your patience. So we have Amy's got limited battery life, so we're going to knock through these administrative pieces. We had severe technical issues when we started this evening. So the orders for 4 Cliff Estates Road.
I make a motion, we accept the orders of condition as written for 4 Cliff Estate Road.
I have a second.
Second from Jen.
So Richard,
Yes.
Doug,
He's not
He's-
back yet.
okay. So I got Penny, I got Jen, Andrew,
Yes.
Brendan. Frank,
Yes.
yes.
Sorry.
Thank you. We got enough. Good.
Okay. I make a motion, we accept the orders of condition for 47 Town Way, 48 Town Way.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
That's not how I see. Okay.
Second.
So I just want to be clear on those orders. So with regard to the septic the septic tank, what we want them to do is we'd like to see them move that septic tank onto the other property, and
Right.
we're going to talk it over with the Board of Health. If for some reason the Board of Health doesn't allow it to be over there, we want that septic tank to be as far away from the ocean as possible.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
And then
Frank,
what-
the way it's written is the burden of proof to demonstrate whether or not that can happen is on them.
Okay. All right. And then with regards to work on the site, our limitation of time is for like heavy equipment, the crane, the piles, things like that. If they have electricians, plumbers, tradespeople, I don't know that we've ever not allowed people to work on their homes on that time. What we're trying to do is keep heavy equipment off that area during the summer months, right?
Keep time.
Okay,
People there, kids there.
right. I just want to be sure we're clear on that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Penny, you've made a motion for
To accept them.
47 Town
Yeah,
Way
okay.
extension and 48 Town Way extension.
Right.
So all in favor, Richard,
Yes.
Doug? Did Doug ever come back?
No.
Okay, Penny, you made a motion. Jen,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes. Great, thank you. Okay, draft minutes at 12:21.
I don't know if I was here 12:21.
Well, you must have watched the meeting or something.
Yeah. Well, why doesn't Richard make the motion?
I'm happy to make the motion, and you're right, you weren't there. So, with that little change, I make a motion to approve the minutes of December 21st, 2020.
Okay, and do I have a second?
A second, Brendan.
Brendan, thank you, Brendan. So all in favor, Richard?
Yep.
Doug? Jen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Brendan did that. Frank, yes. Great, thank you. 133 Maple Street nitrogen credit update.
Right. So actually, this isn't going to be much of a conversation because we don't really need to discuss it. How about that? So there's a little bit of back and forth with Board of Health on nitrogen credit for this site that we have a set of orders for, but I don't know, my interpretation is, which I have also discussed with one of the engineers working on the project, is it's a conservation restriction, not conservation commission. So let's go to the next item, which is correspondence.
So Amy, how do these people resolve this? I know this has been going on for a long time. There was like a nitrogen credit given and then they want to rescind it. Is that my understanding?
No, it's a nitrogen credit and they need to put a restriction on land. So it's a state level thing. So it's not a conservation commission thing. It's an EOEA thing where they've set aside a portion of a piece of land that I mean, actually, maybe if Doug is back on, maybe he's familiar with nitrogen credits, but it's not something that impacts us. So,
Because these people have been asking me about this. I told them we had no information.
right.
And
Yeah,
then,
they've been asking us too, which is why I wanted to put it on just in case we needed to take some kind of a action on it, but there's no action to take. So I'm not sure what to tell you.
all right, well, we don't need to belabor it right now. Correspondence.
Anything of
We
interest?
got an email today. We're good.
I mean,
All
you can
right.
check the correspondence list, right? So if there's anything of interest you want to discuss, we got a lot of correspondence. Let's just say that.
Okay. So on the DCR forestry plan, what we've been doing is we, in order to comply or qualify for grants for like any other forestry programs in our woods, habitat enhancement, whatever, we want to have a forestry plan. So reached out to Benjamin Forestry Services, Phil Benjamin, who's also on the board at Wildlands Trust. And he gave us a proposal to develop a forestry plan for a lot of our acreage. Penny put together a great list of our properties. And in total, there's probably 400 acres
Yeah.
for a forestry plan. His cost to do that is around $10,000. But he actually applied for and got us a grant for $6,700. I'm rounding things off a little bit. So essentially, the commission needs to come up with somewhere between $3,000 and $3,500 to do this. And I think it's really worthwhile if we want to eventually pursue other programs on our woods. We could be harvesting some trees if we want to do that. We want to do sort of habitat enhancement workout programs with maybe Fish and Wildlife, but it's like the starting point for us to do that is my interpretation. And I'd like to go forward, and it's a matter of whether we pull these funds from. We've got a contribution from Toll Brothers. We've got a couple of other things. I think we can figure out where to get that money. So anybody have any thoughts or comments?
If we can get the money, I absolutely should do it.
Agreed.
Frank, how long is it good for, the forestry program that he'll come up with for us?
Well, he'll give us a forestry plan. I'm not quite sure how often we have to update that, but I bet it's at least 10 years or 20 years.
Okay.
I mean, once they give us something, and we can talk about with him how we want to lay that out and what sort of things our expectations are.
Okay,
for
sounds
that.
good. Yep.
Anybody? Andy or Brendan?
That sounds good to me.
Okay, so if it's all right with the commission, we're gonna figure that out. Should we put that to a vote, Amy?
To come up with the 3,300.
Yeah, I don't think you really need a vote. I mean, I think we need to try to figure out where the money's going to come from.
Right. Okay.
Well, I mean, what would you be voting on?
Just that we're, as a commission, we'd like to move forward with this proposal.
We noted in the minutes
Okay.
that we're going to look into it and try to figure out how we're going to fund it.
Okay.
Do we have any funds?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
sounds good.
Toll Brothers, Amy?
Right. So you guys remember that heavy rain event 2 Saturdays ago? Do you recall that?
Yeah.
Anyways, so basically every construction site in town was probably leaching silty water, but in particular, Toll Brothers had some pretty significant SWIP violations, which is, you know, their violations of their stormwater permit for the site, and so laden water was leaving the property and into the storm drain system, and anyways, and so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Planning board has fined them. I think we should send them a fine. There, you know, we had some complaints about a couple other sites too. Like, one of the ones was on Crescent Ave, at the corner of Edward Foster and Crescent. It's under construction. I spoke with them, and I think that, you know, so they are doing the work to rectify the situation. And also, I have to say, the Toll Brothers immediately did jump on with some corrective actions. But I mean, with Toll Brothers, it's kind of like, geez, we're really late in the game to be having those kind of violations, don't you think? I mean, it's really pretty
Things should be pretty stable out there, shouldn't they?
It's
Oh,
not.
you know what? The problem is that they're still well under construction, and they're not doing a great job of maintaining their crushed stone areas in front of the houses that are already going on.
Oh, okay.
So,
Not really on the Tilden side so much, although Karen picked up something over there. It's
the crews coming and
on the
going from the
Hathaway.
sites are tracking mud and dragging it into the road. They have
I've
equipment that
seen
they're
that.
loading and unloading off the site, and they're just, what they're supposed to have, most of these projects today had, was they create an area right off the road with some crushed stone
Mhm.
to do that, and they're not managing that very well.
Okay.
Right.
Well, then fine them.
Yeah, I mean, the fines, I mean, it's usually, it's by offense. I mean, I think our fine at this point is probably just a straight up $300. I mean,
Well,
I don't know.
$300 is 300.
Yeah. Yeah.
Random.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we have to stay diligent on them till the end. I mean, that's.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Oh. The next one is interesting. 81 Country Way.
Yeah.
What's up?
Okay, 81 Country Way was one that Frank picked up as a drive-by, and that one's, it's a new owner, you know, doing a rehab of the property that was kind of messed up. So anyways, he's already filed an RDA. I think it's going to be on for the next meeting after the fact, and also was in communication with him today about Meadowbrook's going out there to put down the limit of work. So I mean, I think we've got that one going, you know, maybe not necessarily in the it was picked up as a violation, but I'd hopefully move it forward just as an unpermitted. I mean, and I guess the question remains is, do you want to start sending people fines on these things? You know what I mean? Because I guess you could start finding all these unpermitted work, but there's going to be a lot of them. You know what I mean? And we're pretty busy, so just not sure. It's not.
But is that a reason? Just because we're busy and there's a lot going on, is that a reason to let people get away with this?
Well, you haven't been necessarily taking that approach in the past, so that would be a shift in your approach.
We used to do a lot of violations. We used to, the enforcement orders, we used to do a lot of those.
Right. Well, with the amount of permits and staff, you're stretched pretty thin. And just of note, I mean, we don't actually benefit as a commission from the fine money. It goes into the town's general fund. You know, the fines start, you know, at 100 and go to 300. And then just of note, when you're trying to push a violation matter forward, the recommended approach from DEP is to try to work with people. So, you know, it definitely sets the tone out of the gate if you're going to penalize people, but maybe that's what you want to do, because we are certainly sick and tired of having people not pay attention to our rules and regs. So, and that's, you know, a huge problem. Frank and I and Penny and Jen and Doug and Rich, and we're on the phone constantly about, you know, people who are home doing the wrong thing or just trying to improve things, you know, and
improve things for them, but not for
Well,
nature.
I think the hardest part, like Amy was saying, the uptick in them is a lot of people are at home through this COVID thing. They're looking in their backyard and they can't do other things, so they're trying to do that. And my belief is that Amy's on the right track. That at first we approach these people and say, hey, listen, you may not be aware of it, but this is a wetlands or whatever, and it needs to be protected. And if the activity isn't that egregious and the people are willing to stop, I think it's the frequent flyers that we have to keep coming back to, that we have to move on with some enforcement and possibly some fines.
Okay.
I found one the other day where someone had pushed a bunch of gravel right into a brook, and to me that's something that needs to be dealt with. And if the people aren't willing to make remediation right away, then we have to think about a fine and enforcement and go on from there. And I think we're all hearing it. I'm getting calls weekends with people that get frustrated seeing stuff done. And the other part is that if you have folks around them that have taken the time and money to file appropriately, they're frustrated to see someone just go out and do something that they tried to do correctly. So I think it's important we keep it up to some degree, but as Amy points out, look at the hearings tonight. We're going to continue with that. How much time can we put into that? So we have to balance that.
But I agree with that. I think it sounds like I don't even want to. It sounds like we have a bigger issue in that staffing. If we can't support it, then I know it sounds very easy to say we should work on that, but that sounds like the bigger problem, perhaps.
Yeah.
Also, $100 fine.
Been a problem. We need
Sure.
somebody else.
Sure. I'm sure it has, but also $100 fine is not the end of the world. So
Right.
if they don't write back to us in a week, it becomes a fine of $100 or something like that.
Yep.
Because Jen and Amy have far better things to be doing with their time, but we won't get attention on these things if I'm tired of reporting sheds.
Right. Well, I mean, one thing would be, additional public outreach about maybe these people don't realize the importance of wetlands, right? So and we've got an upcoming opportunity to do some outreach with the Coastal Advisory Commission. And maybe, I don't know, maybe the word hits the street, you risk fines, which is what the letter says, and it gets their attention. And trust me, unfortunately, people have lost sleep over the letter that I send out, which is kind of a stock letter threatening up to $25,000 fine per day, which is, you know what I mean? And so trust me, it gets their attention. The one that Frank just brought up over in Gannett, they called immediately. The guy had been worried all weekend about it. So, I mean, I kind of feel really bad about those, but, shouldn't be happening, right?
Mm-mm.
And I think it's terrible for those people, but I want to enforce that they're making the right decision and, get the dummies who give two shakes about following our process.
Not everybody calls back right away, but I'm finding that last week was a really good week and people calling back, want to do the right thing, but it's time consuming, which is why, I mean, not everybody remembers this, but when I came on in 2017, we had Patrick for
Right.
how long? I don't know, long enough. So it was good to have a part-time agent just tracking those difficult enforcement cases, and the budget it got sliced. So it didn't get, so I think that, to try to address the deeper need of staffing is at the level of the town administration and finance committee. So those are conversations you can have with the town leaders. And I can request it and they just look at you it's not happening. We're in a pandemic, right? We couldn't get a working computer tonight. So,
All right.
Right.
Well, I think we understand the predicament and we want to keep up our efforts and do our job as commission members. So we're going to keep trying to work towards that.
yeah, okay, moving forward, Newell Street. So this is another one on the, you know, we've talked about it quite a few times, and
The dock, right?
the dock,
No, it's
Langone,
next door to the dock, Penny.
Well, but the dock got washed away,
Oh,
Richard.
yeah,
Right.
yep.
So anyways, and I'm happy to report that I've been having ongoing conversations with Langone, and she, you know, they wrote to me what happened, and they're basically, it's the decking and it's just taking longer to repair the decking. But anyways, after three emails repeating, you need to get the stuff off the salt marsh. Hopefully, Rich, you might be able to confirm this, but supposedly the float was going to be removed at high tide over the weekend, and they should be just about done. So that material should be out of there.
I will walk over there tomorrow. I know that one piece was moved. I don't know if it was all moved. So I'll go over there tomorrow. I'll let you know.
Yeah, because there was a bunch of floats down there.
Yeah,
I
there
think
were.
3 of
Yep.
them.
Yep.
But they're working on it. They understand that we're serious about it, and
Okay.
so that's good. So that's positive news. So you want them to go in that direction, right? So I think most of them are all working in the right direction, honestly. All right, 19 Peggotty Beach. I mean, I hate to belabor this one, honestly, because we've met about it. We've met with the attorney, the owners, talked to this one around in circles, but I do finally have a letter where the DPW is going to take care of one of the conditions, that's road work. And that money is going to go into a interest-bearing account for only the purpose of fulfilling that condition, with any remaining funds and municipal/conservation projects as approved by town administrator after consultation with the conservation agent, DPW director, and/or town engineer, all of whom must concur. So you guys could take a vote on that one if you so choose.
So this is the one that's on Peggotty Beach where they needed to clean up the land and then the pipe was under the street.
Yeah, and they
Yes.
had to unclog it.
Yep.
Property. Yeah.
I'm all good.
So I'll make a motion that we accept that condition, that we back it.
That'd be great. And Rich's got a second. So all in favor, Doug, Jen,
Yep.
Andy,
Yes.
Brendan,
Yes.
Frank, yes.
All right, I'm unmuted.
Are
I
you
said
ready to-
yes. I said
Oh.
yes, and you just went,
Right by you.
yeah.
Well, we lost you for a couple there. I didn't know if you decided to come back or not.
He's here.
All right. Great. Thank you.
Right, I'm in the red zone on my, I mean, I think I have a few minutes, but anyways, we're moving right along. Open space cleanups. Frank, you were going to go through that one, and then into Appleton Field. If I cut out, that's what's going on.
Let's do Appleton Field first. So what Amy and I have to do is just get with the town administrator to clarify a little bit on the proposal that Andy's put together, and make sure we don't have any issues, because we want to get this moving. All of us, you know, it's the time of year when people really want to plan for their gardens and whatnot. So we're going to try to make a time to meet with the town administrator and get whatever additional information he has, so that at least the community garden couldn't be started this year. And then if we decide to take applications from commercial farmers or something, we can work on an RFP for that, or something beyond that. But I think we'd already agreed in principle that we do want to put that out there, and it's just a matter of clarifying with the TA just how that should be put together. Do you agree with that, Amy?
Yes. And I spoke with Andy, if he's still on the line.
Yeah.
Yep, I'm here.
About this, and maybe about Andy, Frank, and Amy getting together for a cup of joe and going over some of the details before we go to TA, but I can make the appointment with the TA.
All right, well, let's try to make one with him for a little bit of this monetary stuff. You and I can talk about that, and let's try to catch up fairly soon. Maybe Andy, you shoot a couple of times. That's good for you.
Yep.
And we'll make it work. All right.
I can do that.
Thank you. There's a couple of places, like at Ellis, the parking lot and brush and stuff that just aren't getting cleaned up. And also we've been talking about the area at the Driftway where those couple of trails are so bad, and it just doesn't seem like the DPW's got enough on their plate with other things. So I've reached out to a couple of local landscapers, people that have offered, contractors that have offered to help out before. And I think we can muster a little bit of help with either some equipment or labor to do a couple of those things. And we might have to purchase some small amounts of material, either some gravel or hard pack or whatever like that. I don't see any drawback to doing that. And I just want to see if anybody's got any thoughts on us doing something like that. You know, we'll need some gravel for the parking lots, and we'll have to pull that from our funds, but I don't see it being more than $500, maybe $1,000 in material if we consider what we need for the Driftway park. But I think we have some funds available for that area as well. And so we'd be going to some local landscapers, contractors and and see if we can't get some help to do a couple of those things and maybe give them some kudos, you know, whatever, as part of doing that. The town forest is a little bit more complicated. The DPW should help us out with some of these. I mean, that town forest sort of falls under a little different set of circumstances with the selectmen doing more. So I think we need to push on with the selectmen to see if we can't get some more help. That the town forest at Maple Street is awful. It's kind of a disgrace.
You know what, Frank, if DPW would just go up there with some trucks and then a bunch of volunteers, I mean, I'd be more than happy to go up on a Saturday or even a Friday and help load it up. But, you know, the big thing on stuff like that is having the vehicle to get the stuff out of there.
Oh, maybe we can work something out with them to do that, Penny. But I think
I'm sure we could get some people to volunteer time to help load the truck up.
Well, the other part with that one is we somehow got to restrict the access to out there so that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I agree. I
All right.
agree.
All right. Well, let's see if we can organize that. All right. Anything else?
I think so.
All right. Well, I do appreciate everybody putting in the time on this, and Amy and Jen putting all these things together. We seem to have an onslaught of applications. Everybody's at home and doing something. So we'll do our best to move some of these along. And I appreciate you guys sticking with it, gals.
It's not easy.
I'll make a motion to adjourn then.
I'll take a second.
Second, Andy.
All in favor, Richard?
Yes.
Doug?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Brendan?
Yes.
Frank? Yeah, let's stay a little while longer.
Oh, yeah. Good night.
Good night.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Bye, guys. Thank you.